What's good, YouTube? In this video we'll be taking a look at the new M2 Macbook Pros and the significance of Apple moving ahead with the second generation of its own in-house processors. If you like this kind of content, leave a message down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching. So if you've been following along in the tech scene, you'll probably know that the Apple M1 chip was first released in November of 2020, and it was a custom SoC chip developed by Apple to use on their Mac computers based on ARM architecture. System on a chip, of course, means that there are several components of the computer on a single chip in a single package, which can include the CPU, GPU, memory, and other controllers as well. The M1 chip was first rolled out by Apple in 2020 on the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and Mac Mini lineup of computers. And the reason why the M2 chip is significant is because this will confirm that Apple will be moving forward with building its own in-house chips on all of its future computers. As you may recall, this is not the first time that Apple has moved from outsourcing its processors to insourcing its processors. Way back when the PowerPC processors were initially made by IBM and Motorola, Apple tried to manufacture their own processors or change the manufacturers of their processors as well. With the introduction of the M2 and the well-regarded nature of the M1, this will pretty much confirm that Apple will be moving ahead with future generations of its processors completely in-house. This kind of parallels what Apple's been doing on its smartphone markets, with its Bionic chips being made in-house for a few generations now, and the iPhone's not using any kind of third-party manufacturer for its processors. And one of the reasons why Apple is probably sticking with this strategy is because the M1 chip really turned out to be quite something. It was designed to handle a wide range of tasks, from basic computing to web browsing to really demanding tasks like video editing and 3D rendering, and high-quality video files and renders were reported by many users to be much smoother than previous generations. The M1 chip features a 64-bit CPU with up to 16 billion transistors, and this allows it to deliver high performance while maintaining relatively low power consumption. And the M1 MacBooks really did follow suit, providing a long-lasting battery life despite very good performance. The CPU of the M1 had 8 cores and include 4 high-performance cores and 4 efficiency cores as well. Being a system on a chip, the M1 also had its own custom-designed GPU with up to 32 cores, which allowed for much better graphics performance compared to its predecessors. This was particularly beneficial for video editing and other graphic-intensive applications like Photoshop or AutoCAD. The M1 chip also had several other technologies built into its architecture, like Apple's branded Neural Engine, which is a specialized processor designed to accelerate machine learning tasks. This allowed for faster and more efficient performance, such as in image and speech recognition, making the M1 chip well suited towards AI and machine learning workloads as well. Overall, the M1 chip was a significant advancement in the technology of Apple computers, with its high performance, efficiency, and also a lot of its versatility as well, and Apple continued to roll it out on the iPad Pro line of tablets, making for a lot more integration between the iPad OS operating systems and OS X on the MacBooks. This is all in line with Apple's closed ecosystem approach towards its technology, allowing Apple to control both the hardware and software that it runs across all its devices. The M1 just enables Apple to further control what kind of software you can run jointly on iPhones, iPads, and Macs. Apple tightly controls the development, distribution, and usage of all the software on its devices, and the M2 chip is just another step in this direction. This, of course, has several implications for users, as Apple is moving away from its long-term partnership with Intel. On one hand, it provides a high level of security and stability, as Apple can make sure that its apps are designed for its in-house built processors. Additionally, it ensures a consistent user experience as well, as no one will argue that the M1 and of course the M2 chips were blazingly fast. However, it is a trade-off because what we're dealing with is a completely controlled ecosystem where third-party app developers have to follow stringent standards to develop software on their apps. And with the improvements in the M2 chips on these new MacBook Pros, this is more than just an iterative upgrade on the next generation of chips. Apple says that the M2 chip has a much more efficient performance with an 18% faster CPU, and then also, being a system on a chip, also has improvements on the GPU, with Apple stating that it has 35% more power on the GPU and a 40% faster neural engine. There are also other improvements as well. The M1 chip had 16 billion transistors, whereas the M2 chip has 20 billion. The M1 chip had an 8-core GPU, whereas the M2 chip has a 10-core GPU. And while the M1 chip had support for 8 GB or 16 GB unified memory, the M2 chip can actually support up to 24. There's also several specific features designed for graphics and video on the M2 chip, with a media engine for hardware accelerated H.264, HVAC, ProRes, and ProRes RAW. It also has a higher bandwidth to a video decoding engine, and a new image signal processor. Overall, these are significant improvements that will no doubt make graphic intensive applications on the M2 chip and these new lineup of MacBook Pros run a lot more smoother and more efficiently. Apple, of course, is rolling out its own line of video editing software as well that's optimized to run on its hardware. So we'll just have to see if Apple's departure from Intel in terms of making its own processors will also mean that it becomes a lot less competitive to have graphic intensive applications on Mac computers. Apple is consistently improving its software lineup, and new apps like Freeform are designed to gain Apple some traction in certain market segments that it previously didn't occupy. We'll just have to see if the M2 chip and Apple's singular focus on keeping anything in-house will continue this trend, and if Apple starts delivering new software segments in different markets where it didn't previously occupy. It's quite exciting to see just how far Apple can push the envelope with its own in-house technology, but the flip side of this coin is that it really does potentially stifle additional competition from third-party developers that have to follow Apple's guidelines and standards and architectures just to be able to develop software on their systems. This is the same thing with Android and iPhone, as you might have noticed that the software that's available for Android is actually quite different than the versions that you might get for iOS because of the closed ecosystem nature of Apple's mobile app store. We'll probably just see more of the same as the MacBook line of computers just becomes more and more of a closed garden as we progress, and as Apple is starting to move more of their hardware manufacturing in-house. So what do you think? Is this new M2 chip a step in the right direction or wrong direction for Apple and the overall state of its ecosystem? Leave a message down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.